Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Barriers and Boundaries Resilience Leadership Podcast. And very excited to have Red on the show today. Hello, Red.
Hey, what's up, EB?
Thank you for your time and the engagement. I really wanted to have a special guest on to specifically talk about leadership and just how that contributes to a resilient organization. And I was searching and looking, and like you came up, and I was very pleased with with your website, just the amount of information there, but I'd love to kind of work our way towards that leadership blueprint that I see.
Well, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
So tell me about you. What's some of your background here?
So I am actually transitioning out of the military. I've been in the Navy for over 21 years. I'm a girl dad. I have two girls, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So it's kind of hectic at times here at the household.
Well, thanks for your service and identifying as a girl dad, just how important that is for you, which I see in a lot of your work is a healthy kind of balance or establishment of the connection between work and life.
Definitely. And, besides that, I do some coaching on the side. I've been doing that for the past several years now. And then also, as far as besides the military, I do a little investment into real estate.
Nice. Yeah, it's always it's good to kind of work on some of that passive income.
Most definitely, man. Yes, prepping for that future.
Yeah, one of the things that definitely caught my attention was the leadership training certifications with Maxwell, and then the RBLP, certified as a trainer.
Yeah.
Can you tell me some about that and what that means for you, and how do you seek to kind of utilize that more as you continue working in that field?
Yeah, thanks for that question. For me personally, I've always, within the past, I want to say 7, 8 years now, I've been on this personal quest to be better, just be a better leader, be a better father, be a better husband, however that may be, right? So, in seeking that out, I've been able to, had the opportunity to get these qualifications that you mentioned, RBLP, been involved with John Maxwell and the Maxwell leadership team. Actually, just past year, earlier this year, became certified with their team. And it's just looking for ways to develop myself to be better for my sailors and just personally to be a better person in general.
Yeah. And one of the things I noticed also with that when I've seen some of the things that you've talked about in the past, and I really want to capture here, was some of that intentionality. Can you talk to me about intentional leadership?
Yeah, so for me, being an intentional leader is mainly being intentional with your time, right? Growing up in the military, to be honest, I've learned a lot more from the bad leaders, mainly obviously not be one of them, right? And in one life, and we all have a certain amount of time we have left here in this world. And with my experience in the military, I don't take it for granted, because as I reflect back, there could be times where I might have not been here if certain situations turned out differently. And I'm just grateful for the time that I have here. And with being intentional, I just want to make sure I'm making use of every time that I have here, and to become a better person.
Yeah, and intentional. And I see the blueprint. Is that how that started for you, wanting to capture something that allows leaders to be intentional?
Yeah, for me, I think just from my experience, I've learned a lot from different people and kind of taken some bits and pieces here and there. What really resonated with me is, from the bad leaders to the good ones, is they were intentional with their time, and there wasn't wasted time, right? They tried to utilize everything that they had with whatever time that they had. That just goes back to the intentional, you mentioned the intentional leadership blueprint. I wanted our leaders to just focus on that, and to ensure that as leaders, we have that obligation. We have that obligation for those that work with us and work for us to just be better, and be able to provide the resources, the tools that they need, so that we can bring them up to be successful as well.
Yeah. And then going into being able to talk about barriers and boundaries here, I feel like that's a great tool to address a barrier, or at least to identify barriers to begin with. And then as far as establishing boundaries, good communication, good feedback, the opportunity just to learn. And how does a mindset play a role in this intentional blueprint for you?
Definitely, mindset is everything. Mindset, for me, I think one of the barriers and challenges I had when I was a young leader was not asking for help.
That's
And
great.
we've seen that in other leaders where they feel like they can tackle everything. So that was kind of like my challenge early on in my leadership journey, not asking for help and also not being able to delegate tasks, right? Delegate some assignments. With that, I had difficulty delegating tasks or assignments, and that in turn put so much on my shoulders. I wasn't able to focus on the main thing. And so I've been able to learn through my experience, sometimes the hard way, to be able to relieve some of that burden that I've been carrying as a leader and be able to empower my people, the people that I work with and the people that work with me, just empower them with giving them leadership tasks or duties to help them become successful.
And you mentioned the ability to delegate, which I think is huge, and asking for help. Those two things in particular, I see those often as we transition to a new role, maybe a promotion, things like that. How much have you seen? You talked about kind of bad leadership. How much have you seen has it been related to just an inability to connect with what that next level of leadership is for them in terms of they got promoted, but they got promoted based on what they've done in the past, and they're still living out that same mindset of they just think they got to do more
Yeah.
of what they did in the past. Does that resonate with you and what you've experienced?
Yeah, that phrase, I don't know if you're familiar with hip hop, more money, more problems. The more you go up in rank, the more responsibilities you have. What got what got you to where you are isn't necessarily what's going to get you to the next level,
That's
right?
gold.
Because I think because you have new responsibilities and people have a hard time shedding their old selves and not realizing, hey, this is where I'm at now. I have a new role, new responsibility. This is what I got to focus on. So yeah, it's just realizing a lot of it is self-awareness as well.
Self-awareness is a big aspect to that. And what are some tools that you feel like help people kind of develop more of that self-awareness?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think leaders need to not be afraid of being transparent and laying it all out there. For example, if you're a leader that's walking into a new role at a new location or whatnot, right? Be open to talking to your people and ask them what's been going right that we can continue, or what are some things that we can improve and change.
What kind of resistance to change have you seen? They should be ready for a new role, but they're just not connecting with it yet.
A lot of leaders, they're hesitant with that change. I've always heard the term, oh, we've always done it this way, right? And so it's been working, so why fix it? Okay, it's been working, but can we improve on it? Can we make it better? And I think it's just laziness, to be honest. Nobody wants to make changes to improve because they don't think there's any change that needs to be made.
I can see those working against each other when you say be intentional, and then the opposite of that being lazy. Kind of opposite ends of the spectrum there. One of the things I appreciated reading up and listening more to some of your story, there's this sweet spot between success and well-being. Talk to me about how this kind of developed for you and the importance of a good home life, the well-being, whether you're able to coach or volunteer, but just have a good family life, but also focus on ways to stay successful.
Obviously, success, it's different for everybody. But for me, in this stage of my life, with my girls, like I mentioned, 3-year-old and 6-year-old, the most important thing for me is spending as much time as I can with them. And obviously, with that, my career kind of takes the back seat. Everybody talks about balance with work-life balance. I like to use the term work-life harmony because at the end of the day, I don't think there is balance. If you're working and focus on that, then family and things are down here, right? And vice versa. So you got to have harmony between the two. And with me transitioning, family is the most important thing, and family time, making sure I get that.
Talking about young leaders now, like let's say you have someone coming up the ranks, getting promoted. Sometimes you can kind of recognize that they've got potential, they're going to do great things, and they're going to go on to be a great leader. What would you say to them how to establish themselves as a leader? Or what would you tell your younger self if you interviewed your younger self? Those types of things. Like what's that advice for someone starting out that you think is critical for them to know?
Well, first off, let me just say the younger generation now, they're so much more informed than I was when I was growing up. With technology, their information that they can just pull up in seconds. It's literally in their fingertips. But young leaders, I would say, don't be afraid of failing. Growing up, there's that stigma with failing and failure, right? Especially in school, if you get an F, it's not a good thing. But in life, you're tested in life, and people sometimes are afraid of going out and taking lead. And they might be afraid of failing, but don't be afraid of it, because for me, I believe that the only time you really do fail is if you don't learn from your lesson.
Yeah.
I always look at it as a win. You're either winning or you're learning
Amen to that.
at the end of the
Amen.
day.
I tell my son that all the time. He plays soccer and baseball, and you either win or you learn. You don't lose, and
Mhm.
that's a great thing to highlight, especially as someone whose identity is being shaped at the same time that they're developing. If they fail a test, they might associate themselves as I failed or I'm a failure, and there's a big difference between those two narratives.
Two different
Yeah.
things.
What about senior leaders that have been kind of stuck in their ways? What are some ways that you like to establish a connection with them?
Yeah, for me, with consulting with leaders or talking to leaders, I would like to get in their mindset as far as like, what is their thought process? Why are they thinking this way? Do they believe that there's changes that need to be made? And just go from there as far as like evaluating what we need to change, what we need to improve, what we need to implement in their business or whatever that may be. Having that one-on-one conversation with them and really getting to know them on a more personal level, I think helps me identify where we need to go.
And those connections, I can see
Yeah.
that in the blueprint as well. There seems to be a lot of consciousness in your remarks. Just think through what you're doing. Is that part of your design as well?
It goes back to like the emotional intelligence and also just being an empathetic leader. There's times where we just need to be more understanding of situations that are going on. If you have one of your personnel that comes in late, obviously you want them to arrive on time, but asking that question, hey, what happened today? What happened this morning? Why were you late? Because I've had that happen in the past before, where other leaders come in late and they reprimand the person, not trying to ask questions, why were they late? And I've come to find that over the years, that just sitting down and taking the time to talk to the person and talking to them like another human being and treating them, with the same respect that you want to be treated, and showing that. And when they see that, they open up to you. They tell you what's going on personally, and that could be affecting, their professional or their work.
A lot of empathy and respect that will actually unfold. And it's one of
Right.
those things that we see where it doesn't like add to, it multiplies the impact when you
Yeah,
start
for sure.
integrating some of those things. I wanted to ask you about managing expectations. How does that work with consulting and diving into that leader's mindset? Does expectations come up in conversation?
It does. I mean, as far as managing expectations goes back to having that real conversation, that one-on-one conversation with leaders, and realizing, hey, where are you at right now? Where are we at with the foundation? And where can we go? Sometimes you have to bring them back to reality and let them know what's going on. When you're talking to their team members and find out what's really going on, then you have to bring them back to reality. This is where we're at right now, and this is our next step. And then from there and there, just bring them back to reality and kind of help them realize where they're at right now.
With mindset, communication, connections, expectations. A lot of those things are part of the formula for good organizational culture. What do you think are some barriers to establishing a healthy organizational culture?
For my experience, one of them has been communication in a way where sometimes language is a barrier to some people. Having worked with many different people from many parts, different cultures, different ethnic backgrounds, sometimes initially language can be a barrier to making that change within an organization, because I could say something and it could totally mean something completely
Well, sure.
different
Yeah.
to somebody else. And that's where we as leaders have to kind of step in and have that conversation. We're like, no, that's not what I mean.
Right.
Right? This is what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
If my wife says if my wife says she has nothing to wear to a party, that just means she has nothing new. For me, that just might mean I have nothing clean, but I have nothing to wear to the party, and it means two totally different things than the actual thing you said.
You're interpreting, okay, what does she actually really mean?
Yeah, I could see that in the workplace too. In the military, the most diverse organization in the world. What does resilience mean to you, and how do you teach that or coach that?
Coaching resilience or teaching resilience. I think resilience comes with our experience. We talked about before, diversity and different backgrounds. We all come from somewhere. We all come from different backgrounds, and we don't know what people have gone through in the past, and to build their resilience. So it's important to, as a leader, to one, get to know your people as much as you can, get to know them, get to know about their personal background, and learn about some of the experience that they've had, whether that be in the workspace or outside in the personal lives. I think that's important.
Nice. In terms of getting to know your people and kind of working, building up that resilient culture, can you share a moment, just self-brag here, it's fine, one of your favorite moments of being a leader yourself, something that you cherish when you look back on your own memories?
So where I'm at now is I'm an instructor at my command, and the most satisfying thing for me is seeing that transformation with the people that you're in charge of, from when you first met them to when they graduate and when they leave. Sometimes we get letters and even just a thank you and a handshake just from the personnel, and some of the things they talk about, how I've made a difference. Really, that's what we do it for. It's just knowing that you made a change in their lives is so impactful.
Yeah, and one of the key words that I picked up there was transformation. As a leader, it's not a transaction with your people. You're in the business of helping them transform more into who they're supposed to be, who they're striving to be. And man, I love hearing that. Man, so what would you want people to know about you? How do we learn more about Raiden?
Yeah, if people want to check me out, they can go directly to my website, Reden Dionisio, REDEN DIONISIO, RedenDionisio.com. For me, like I said, my experiences that I've had has led me to become an intentional leader. And I'd say intentional, I focused on that because, we never know how much more time we have here on Earth. Right? And there could have been times where I couldn't be here, right? And I'm just so grateful for the time that I have, and the family that I have now, the family that I built, and some of the things that I'm doing, personally, that I'm passionate about, and really make use of the time that we have, and whatever goal, whatever mission that you want to accomplish, don't wait. Stop wishing for it and just start doing.
I love that. Well, hey, Raiden, thanks so much for joining me today. I know that conversation just kind of flies by without even realizing it. I would encourage you all listening and watching this, one, to check out his website. It's in the show notes, and connect with him. And man, value added to your team is connecting with Red. Reach out to him, dive into these conversations and just how it, will help your organization, or even just as a person, because that connection, I'm telling you, success combined with well-being in the home life. I mean, that's the sweet spot. I appreciate that. We'll keep marching on here at Barriers and Boundaries, and we'll wish you well, and don't be afraid to stay connected with us in the future. So thank you. God bless you and your family, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks, EB. God bless.
Thank you. All right, my friends, that was Reden Dionisio. Please check out his website, check out his information, connect with him. He will be value added to your team. Don't sit in silence and suffer. Reach out and get the help, ask for help, just like he talked about. It's one of the biggest barriers. So talk through some of those techniques and, get some of those tools added to your tool belt. And we'll keep marching along here, keep, focusing on celebrating all the great work that other people are doing and the content that they have. And we'll keep bringing on some great guests like that. So until next time, EB out here.